Good morning, everybody. We're going to give everyone a few more minutes just to get on to the webinar, so please hang in there. Thank you for your patience. In case you're wondering if your audio works, it does work. We're just waiting about another minute or two just to let more people join up on the webinar. So thank you for your patience, and we'll be starting up in just a minute or two. Okay, we're just going to wait one more minute for the fashionably late crowd to join us. Should be a good turnout today, so hang in there, and we'll get going in about 1 minute. Hey, Robin, I have 10:03, so why don't we start it up with our introductory slide? Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the May 4th spring webinar of the New Jersey WasteWise Business Network. My name is Steve Rinaldi, and I work for the DEP's Bureau of Sustainability. As I'm sure you figured out by our May the 4th be with you slide, I'm a big Star Wars fan. I'd like to thank Jedi Master Emily DeMeo of my office for creating this cool slide for us. I think it was a great way to start our program today. As many of you know, we hold two New Jersey WasteWise Business Network events each year, one in May and one in November. Today's webinar is the 39th WasteWise meeting or webinar that we've held since the program began in 2003. The only time we did not hold an event was in May of 2020 during the pandemic. And yes, with the program beginning in 2003, we are now celebrating the 20th anniversary of the New Jersey WasteWise Business Network. To celebrate, there will be virtual cake and coffee in our virtual break room after the webinar. I'm happy to report that we have 374 people registered for today's webinar, so another great turnout. In fact, that's a new WasteWise Guinness Book World's Record for our registration. So hopefully a good number of those people will be able to join us that have registered. For those of you who are new to our WasteWise program, the New Jersey WasteWise Business Network is the DEP's free educational program designed to help businesses and organizations learn more about waste reduction, recycling, recycled product procurement, and sustainability. As mentioned in our recent spring newsletter, there are now 355 businesses and organizations registered as members of the New Jersey WasteWise Business Network, and over 500 representatives from these businesses and organizations participating in the program. If you would like to register your company or organization as a member of our WasteWise network, please send me an email at steven.rinaldi@dep.nj.gov. It's as simple as that. And my contact information will be available again at the end of the webinar. Before we start, I'd like to go over a few points with you about the webinar. Number one, attendees' video and audio will be muted throughout the webinar, but feel free to applaud and shout bravo at any time that you'd like. Number two, please type in your questions for the speakers via the chat feature on your webinar screen. Your questions will be relayed to the speakers by the moderator and host team. We should have time for a couple of questions at the end of each presentation, and then we'll also have a Q&A period at the end of the program. Recertification credits. Those individuals who are New Jersey Certified Recycling Coordinators will earn 1.5 recertification credits for attending today's webinar, with a 50-50 split between meeting and classroom credits. And just so you know, we send the attendance list, registration list to Carol Broccoli at Rutgers, and she will mark down that you get the credits. And as I mentioned with speaker contact information, the speaker PowerPoint presentations should have their contact information in them, but we will also post a slide at the very end that will have all the speaker contact information listed. So that'll be shown during the Q&A period. In terms of my opening remarks, we have a very full agenda today, so I'm going to close out my opening remarks by reminding you that the DEP's Recycling Awards program will be starting soon, and we are featuring a new award category this year called the Recycled Products Procurement Star. The nomination package will be out probably in the next couple of weeks, so look for that. And if your company or organization is doing some great work, please send in an application, a nomination, or if you know somebody is doing some great work, nominate them. Okay, so let's get started with our program. Our first speaker today is Kai Azarel, who is the chief of the DEP's Bureau of Sustainability. Kai is going to provide you with a short introduction to a new sustainability initiative that will be coming out of the DEP. So I'm going to turn it over to Kai.
Okay, thank you, Steve. So today I'm going to talk to you about the plan for sustainability, but before I go and do that, I just want to give a little idea of what the Bureau of Sustainability does. The Bureau of Sustainability houses the Sustainability Education and Outreach Unit. That brings you a series and things like this, the WasteWise Network. We also do the Sustainable Speaker Series. We are the engine behind the Sustainable Business Registry. And there's a number of other things that we do for education and outreach, like infographics, working with students and providing all sorts of materials for being more sustainable. So the other things that we do, we have the Small Business Assistance Program. That's a technical assistance program that is geared toward businesses that have to deal with environmental regulations and and complying with the rules that they may encounter on an environmental level. There's also the pollution prevention program that's within the Bureau of Sustainability, and that focuses on toxics release reduction throughout the state. So now let me tell you about a new initiative that we're taking on in our Bureau, and that's the Plan for Sustainability. So what this Plan for Sustainability is, it's going to be something that encourages businesses to adopt a sustainability plan. And that's going to be based on measurable, sustainable actions that they can take. So the people that we want to encourage to do this are small businesses and medium-sized businesses, because a lot of these smaller entities don't necessarily have sustainability or environmental officers. A lot of these smaller businesses focus mainly on what they're trying to produce and deal with on a daily basis. and they have very little time to really investigate the best way to be a company that's focused on sustainability. So this plan for sustainability that we're generating in our bureau is going to help them out tremendously, because we're going to be providing them with a roadmap for sustainability. Basically, that's going to be a template that they can fill out with various types of sustainable actions that they can take. They'll be given resources for where they can find energy benchmarking, audits for water, audits for energy usage, waste audits. So the reason why I talk about those type things is because we feel that measuring prior to going into a sustainability plan is a good way to develop a baseline for those facilities. Because if you don't measure things, you can't change things. So, having a good baseline of information is going to be critical to the success of any sustainability plan that a business does put together. So, this plan is also going to have a menu of items that a business can choose, and they'll choose them whether or not it's right for their business. If there's a lot of energy usage, then that energy usage can be one of the focal points for the facility. But if that's not a big deal, maybe water's more of an issue, then the water conservation efforts would be more appropriate for that business. So there'll be like a whole menu of options that these facilities can choose from. Then, this plan isn't available yet. We're going to be rolling this out to the various businesses throughout the state. But once we do roll this out and businesses start to say, hey, this is a great idea, I want to participate, but maybe I don't know how, or here's a environmental question that I have, or there's a resource I'm looking for, but I can't find it. Well, any of those questions, sticking points, things where they may have like questions on measuring a particular environmental outcome that they're trying to achieve, well, we're going to be providing technical assistance for that using some of the very programs we already have here in our bureau. And let me also mention that all this type of assistance and materials will be given to the businesses. So this is going to be free assistance and planning for those businesses that want to participate. So basically, the next question that I think people have to ask themselves is like, well, why would I do this? Why would I go through the process of making a plan for being sustainable? Well, if you don't plan for it to happen, it's not going to happen. That's number one. But understanding what the benefits of making that plan is critical here. Now, there's the environmental stuff that of course, we want people to achieve putting a plan together, right? So, greenhouse gas reduction, reducing toxics, sending less waste to landfills, those kinds of things are typical motivation for us to participate here. We hope these businesses do it so that there's an environmental improvement. But there are other improvements that come with a sustainable plan that a business can implement. Some of these revolve around making the community better. So the local economy gets better, involving more of the community members in the particular activities a business may do is part of being sustainable. Improving their supply chain is another way to be sustainable. Making sure that the resources that the business needs, they can get even in tough times. I know during the pandemic, there were a lot of businesses that could not get raw materials in. And if anything that teaches you, it teaches you that you have to have multiple sources for your resources to come in. And the more secure you can make those supply chains, the better and more sustainable your business can be. That also kind of plays into the resiliency of that business. There's other kinds of resiliency that we'd be also interested in when we plan for sustainability. Maybe you're planning for flooding events. Maybe you're planning for other kind of climate changes that are happening. So, when you think about these things, you can make a plan for it and then put some thing into action. Of course, those businesses that are more environmentally friendly, working better with the community, putting in things that are going to improve their reliability. Benefit is that they improve their reputation. So, and they become something that has create a real value for their customers, a real value for the people that they serve. So, and like I said, there's lots of different benefits that come from being a sustainable business. And some of them aren't always just like that environmental one. That's the point I want to drive home. So even things like improving worker retention because you have a safer work environment is a big thing because, turning over staff, it costs a business money. You have to train people, and if they leave after a year or 2 years because maybe the working condition isn't safe or they didn't like something, well, that's a problem. So, avoiding those kind of problems through being through a sustainability plan is also part of that. So there's a lot of good beneficial reasons why somebody should want to do this, and we're going to give you guys the tools to do it. Here's the process that we're looking at that we think is going to be key for making sure that these plans work out. So
All right,
first
Kai,
of all,
quick interruption, just to give you a heads up, couple more minutes, okay?
all right, excellent. So basically, the facility should do a measurement of their existing activities and how that impacts the environment, how that impacts their bottom line. Then take the resources that we're giving them, download the template and start building their sustainability plan. Set some goals for making, against the measurements that they already took to see how they can make improvements. And then take the technical assistance that we're trying to give out, okay, by reaching out to us and saying, hey, yeah, I would need some technical assistance here and maybe, get some help from the department. Identify financial incentives, implement those sustainable actions, measure and track the outcomes, and then review the plan on a regular basis so that you can update the goals that need to be achieved each time. Very quickly, these are the typical things that will be in the sustainability roadmap. We'll be looking at things like energy, waste, water, how to accommodate community efforts into the business, making sure that they address the social aspect of sustainability. And of course, things like reducing any kind of greenhouse gas emissions because climate issues are a very, very important part of being more sustainable. To accomplish this, our Bureau is going to be integrating the different programs that we already have available, and that's including the Sustainable Business Registry, the Speaker Series, WasteWise. This very work group is one of the ways that we're trying to get this information out. The Small Business Assistance Program would deliver that technical assistance. We would help with plan reviews for any kind of pollution prevention efforts that the facility would be interested in doing. So there's all these different things that we already do, but we're going to be pushing these out together in a cohesive package for businesses in New Jersey. And just to give you an idea of what this timeline that we're looking at, we're going to complete our information gathering and document creation and website development by summer of 2023. So it's going to be very soon. We're already working on all this information. We're going to promote the program out to businesses in the fall of 2023, and we hope to start providing technical assistance to those businesses preparing plans by the winter of 2023, so that by the time winter 2024 rolls around, businesses are actually implementing the actions that they think that they can take. So a year from now, a year and a half from now, we're going to have businesses implementing these plans that they've developed. So it's not just enough to say that, hey, I want to develop this plan, but to think, okay, now I got to put things into action. So some action things can be very easy, quick to do. Other ones may have to take a little more time to put into action. So especially if they have some kind of costs associated with them. So here's my information. If you want to reach out to me, you want to discuss anything about the plan for sustainability, I'd be more than happy to talk to any of you about it.
Thank you, Kai. And what I'd like to do, since we're a little behind schedule, is save any questions for the question and answer period at the end. So if you could rejoin us at the end, that'd be wonderful. But thank you very much for that very informative introductory presentation on an upcoming program from DEP. So we're going to move now to our next topic, which, as you might remember on the agenda, we've listed as compostable, degradable, recyclable, recycled content, and other green product claims that confuse the public. The Federal Trade Commission green guides and their impact on waste management. And as anybody in the recycling community knows, all these terms can be quite confusing to not only us, but to the public. So I think this is a very interesting topic. It keeps coming up in conversations that I've been involved in. So I'm very thankful that we have Matthew Carmel with us today. He's a principal attorney with Offit Kerman Attorneys at Law. And I should point out that Matthew is a former DEP Recycling Award winner, so he is quite the recycling champion. And I will turn it over to Matthew.
Thanks, Stephen. Bear with me while I pop up the slides for a second. Okay, can someone confirm that they can see everything good?
Yes, it's good.
Excellent. So very excited to talk to you guys today. As Stephen mentioned, I'm Matthew Carmel from the Offit Kerman law firm. Offit Kerman is a national law firm, 19 offices, 200 attorneys, one of the fastest growing full service law firms in the United States. And I'm the chair of the environmental and sustainability practice for Offit Kerman. We help businesses navigate a variety of complex traditional environmental matters, but then also advance innovative sustainability solutions. And amongst the wide range of things that we do, one of them is regulatory guidance regarding these green product claims. And so green product claims, why they matter. And this is a really important question, and why they matter for the waste industry specifically. So back to this slide for a second. Let's think of an example, right? We've all been in a supermarket. We've all been choosing between different brands of yogurt or coffee or things like that. And we look at the packaging and we make decisions based on a lot of factors. But if you're in this group, I'm going to assume that you make some of your decisions based on what's the environmental impact of this product? Is the packaging recyclable? Is the packaging compostable? Is it made with recycled material? All of these terms that we look at, and whether we know exactly what they mean or not, they influence our decisions to buy things, just like the color of a package, the flavor of the coffee, all those different things can have an impact. So with respect, it's easy at first to understand why brands and consumers might care about these claims. Brands want to make green product claims because they want to be telling their customers why they should buy their product, why their product is sustainable, why their product is, some kind of environmental benefit. And consumers want to be able to know and want to be able to choose. But the topic of this talk is, why does the waste management industry, why does waste and recycling industry care about this? And we'll get into the green claims generally, but just to set the stage for the waste and recycling industry, I have 3 reasons why the waste and recycling industry cares about these green product claims. The first is contamination. If you as a consumer have a product and it says it's recyclable, you might just put it in your recycling bin. Now, I hope that many of you would check with your municipality and see what is accepted and look at the plastic number and see how that fits. But that creates contamination if a consumer puts something that's not recyclable in the recycling. And so the waste and recycling industry is plagued by contamination, significantly increases costs, decreases the value of the end products that are generated at the end of the recycling process. And this isn't just unique to the recycling. It's also in the composting industry. It's a huge issue in the composting industry for something to be called compostable, or even to look like something that's called compostable and end up in the waste stream. So that's one. Two is infrastructure and investment. Brands want to call something recyclable or compostable. They want to market the environmental attributes. To do that, we need to have a closed loop system where the recycling infrastructure can do what the brands are saying it can do. So if we tie these things together, if there's a tie between a green product claim and the end of life for a material, then we can increase investment in infrastructure in the recycling and composting and waste management industries, which is incredibly important. And the last thing is industry integrity, which is my fancy way of saying consumer perception matters, because the recycling industry doesn't just need people to not throw something that's not recyclable in a recycling bin. We need people to increase their recycling percentages. We need businesses to, we need consumers to. And if green product claims are not policed appropriately, consumers will lose faith in the integrity of the recycling and waste management industries. And as a result, green product claims are therefore tied, in my view, very closely to making sure that the integrity of the industry is maintained and consumer perceptions are maintained, so that the recycling industry, the waste management industry can continue to grow. I've been talking about green product claims, but where do these claims come from? What's the regulatory framework? What's the legal framework? So there are both federal and state laws to protect consumers from deceptive and misleading advertising. That's the top line. Those laws can be used to police the green product claims that we're talking about. The federal government acts through the Federal Trade Commission and the Federal Trade Commission Act, which has put out a document called the Green Guides, which is a guidance document that sets standards and frameworks and specific provisions for when different marketing terms, green product terms, can be used. And it's important to note, though, that states are free to enact stricter laws. California has certain stricter laws. There's a handful of states that have stricter laws about when you can and can't make a certain green product claim, and other aspects of product claims relating to these waste management pieces. But although states can make their own laws, the Green Guides, which were created 20 years ago, are the touchstone against which most environmental claims are judged. So there are some general principles applicable to the Green Guides. These are pretty common sense, but don't overstate or deceive. I mean, a really blanket example of this is if your product has 20% recycled content, you can't say it has 30% recycled content, or you can't say made with a significant amount of recycled content unless it's actually made with a significant amount of recycled content. The other sort of general principles are don't omit material information, like if a part of your packaging isn't recyclable, but the rest of it is. Avoid broad, vague, unqualified, or general claims like, buy my product, it's the best for the environment. And you want to support claims with competent and reliable evidence. And usually this means a combination between technical and legal evaluations to understand how your claim matches up and how consumers are likely to perceive those claims. There's 4 specific claims that I think are very critical to the waste management industry that are addressed specifically in the Green Guides. That's compostable, degradable, recyclable, and recycled content. There are about a half dozen other claims, 8 to 10, that are addressed in the green guides, but these are the touchstones. And if you go to the green guides, if you look for information on this, you'll find specific standards. Like, let's take degradable, for instance. And that requires that the material be degradable within a certain period of time in certain conditions. So that gives you a sense of how the green guides specify when you can make a claim and what level of proof you need. Now, interestingly, using that degradable example, the green guides are not legal requirements. A violation, a quote unquote violation of the green guides, is not per se a violation of law. The green guides are an administrative interpretation of the law by the Federal Trade Commission for guidance of the public and of businesses. So in the degradable example, there is actually a case, prior precedent where a company did not exactly follow the green guides. The FTC enforced against the company for violating the green guides, and the company ended up winning on some grounds, of explaining that, well, we didn't match exactly the green guides, but that's okay because we weren't deceiving customers, etc. So there is more wiggle room, but still the Federal Trade Commission's green guides are the touchstone, and I would counsel anyone who's involved in this area to adhere very closely to the green guides. And the question is, okay, we've covered these topics at a very high level, but how does this get enforced? If I'm saying that, this is important for the waste management industry, how does this end up getting enforced? If someone sees something that's wrong, it gets enforced in three primary ways: through regulatory action, through class actions, and through what I'll call other actions. Regulatory action is a state agency or a federal agency, in this instance, the Federal Trade Commission, taking an enforcement action against a company for violating one of the consumer protection laws that give rise to this, either the green guides or the state and analogs of the green product claims. And there's the Federal Trade Commission, there's state agencies, there's state attorneys general. And so that's one way that this can happen. And if you go on the Federal Trade Commission's website, you'll see, a host of times in which they have instituted actions in the last, 20 years. Then you have class actions. These are suits that are brought by consumers, by nonprofits, by shareholders. And so these are groups of people, usually separate categories. It's not usually that they're all band together. And they will sue a company and say, in the case of consumers, I relied on your product marketing and it did not match up. And one example of that is Keurig coffee cups, those small little plastic metal pieces that go in the coffee machine. There was litigation brought by consumers in California over whether those pods were actually recyclable, and Keurig ended up settling that case and entering into a $10 million settlement because of the product claims it was using. There's other litigation like that. Shareholders can bring claims against their company saying that they're doing something that is, unlawful, and that might hurt the share price. And so that's how shareholders get into that group. The final category is other actions, which really is business to business disputes, because the industries have an interest in policing themselves. And I've been involved in several instances where the industry has been working to police itself. And this gets done through cease and desist letters and litigation. I'm not sure how many of you have been on the receiving end of a cease and desist letter, but I think we've all seen it on TV at some point, if not, where that's a letter from one company to another saying, hey, you're doing this wrong thing. In this instance, you're making a green product claim. And that's usually combined with other anti-competitive things, whether it's trademark infringement or something like that. But you're making this green product claim, and we want you to substantiate it or stop it. And I've helped companies responding to those kinds of letters. And then that can lead to litigation between parties. And then there's also what's called alternative dispute resolution, which is an informal process that's overseen by the Better Business Bureau, the National Advertising Division. which allows companies to submit other companies' green product claims and then have the Better Business Bureau decide where it matches up with the green guides. And that's not binding, and it doesn't make anyone carry any sort of enforcement weight or regulatory weight. There's no penalties, so to speak, but it's an important tool to help companies police the industry. So I've talked about what this means for the waste management industry, and it's important to think, okay, why are we talking about this now? We're talking about this now because every 10 years, the Federal Trade Commission updates the green guides. And we are in the midst of an update right now. They announced the start of the update in December of last year. They just concluded their initial comment period on the updates last week, I think, on April 24th. Maybe that was before last week, but anyway, recently. And as you can imagine, much has changed in the 10 years since these green guides were last updated. And so there were many comments received, and I'm just going to pull out some themes for the audience that are specifically relevant to the waste and recycling industry. One question is, can you call a product recyclable or compostable, and call it anything, if it's hypothetically recyclable versus actually recycled? And this gets into not just, the green guides as currently written, I would say, provide that if your material could never be recycled, but it's hypothetically recyclable, like the Keurig example, where those coffee pods were not quote unquote recyclable because the existing infrastructure in the country could not capture something that small, or at least that was the allegation. That's hypothetically recyclable, but there's a flaw in the infrastructure somewhere. That I think is covered in the current green guides, but how far does it go? I mean, if it just happens that your customers don't throw it in the recycling bin, but it otherwise is recyclable, would be picked up in a recycling system and sorted correctly, where do we draw the line on the difference between hypothetically recyclable versus actually recycled? And this could be very important to the compostables industry, to the compostable product industry, because all of those items are hypothetically recyclable to a high degree, but I think there is a low percentage, relatively. I mean, even though recycle, there are some statistics that recyclables are only about 6% of actual products. So this is a real big issue for industry. The other is that in order to call something recyclable or compostable, you have to meet certain thresholds of availability of recycling infrastructure in different areas. And the Federal Trade Commission has been asked to increase those thresholds, and then which would, I think, have a benefit on the recycling infrastructure, encourage more investment. The other is what counts as recycling or composting. There's been a debate in the recycling industry for many years over whether advanced chemical recycling of plastics is recycling, and that is playing out in the Federal Trade Commission green guides discussions, and whether that is something that's going to be able to be counted as recycling for purposes of green product claims. And the same thing is playing out in the composting industry, where there are a prevalence of home composters, or companies claiming that they're doing home composting, but they're not really doing home composting. They're doing some kind of dehydration, which doesn't have the same aerobic digestion process, decomposition process as composting. And if that's the case, can the product be really called a composter? And then another sort of large theme is that we are seeing an emergence of state laws that regulate recyclability, compostability, the California reference I was mentioning. And big companies, I would say, are pressing the federal government to take preeminent status so that none of the state laws apply, and that only the federal law applies in this instance, to create uniform laws. And we'll have to see how that issue and many other issues play out as the green guides are updated. And the last interesting thing is that the green guides are being considered to be converted from guidance to regulations, which could mean that a violation of the guidelines was a violation of law and contained a specific penalty and could create more incentives to police these kinds of issues. And that's it. I don't know if we have time for any questions.
Yes, we do. Gina, do we have any questions or comments for Matthew?
We do have one comment, not a question. It says, I did a policy paper on this topic 25 years ago, specific for New Jersey, but linked it directly to what is now being called the green economy. This paper is probably available through DEP or the state library. Two premises contrary to conventional thinking is we want more claims, as that helps the environment. But of course, claims have to be valid. But we also want companies to push the environmental envelope, which is risky for them as some innovations may fail. There needs to be some flexibility for encouraging innovation, perhaps provisional allowance. That was one comment.
I agree with that comment. I mean, I do think that there's a term out now called green hushing, where in fear of saying something wrong, companies will say less about what they're doing. And that's not something that's really good for everyone. You know, it should be that companies say more, but they have to be careful about what they say. And so, you know, I think that that's one reason maybe it's important to have people involved in the process who understand it.
Thanks, Matthew. We did have one more question come in for you while I was reading that one, and it says, can the state currently enforce the green guides? And if so, who in the state?
So the state attorney general can enforce it. And actually, it's possible for individuals to write letters to state attorneys general with specific requests. There's actually a funny story from a prior election campaign where President Trump was marketing, selling branded straws and claiming they were recyclable. And someone wrote a letter to a state attorney general basically saying, please sue President Trump over these straws because they're not recyclable. So the state can, but consumers can and businesses can. So there is a wide range of enforcement that's available if there are specific violations or potential violations of the green guides.
Awesome. Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you, Matthew.
There's just a link that's been dropped into the chat in case anybody is curious at looking at that link, but we're all good for questions for right now.
Okay. And Matthew, you'll be able to stay for the final Q&A session in case some additional questions come up. Great. Thank you very much. It was very informative and very timely as well. So thank you. So let's see. Our next topic on our agenda is sustainable asset management, reuse and recycling opportunities for the business sector. And we're featuring today Robert Frustacci, President, and Nelson Silva, Project Coordinator of Sustainable Asset Management, Premier Facility Management. And Bob and Nelson have been in this business a long time, and they've been finding some homes for some unique waste items, both through reuse and recycling. So I'm going to turn it over to these gentlemen.
Good morning. And Steve, thank you for having us on this very important topic and this meeting, and we appreciate it. Premier Facility Management is basically a source separation waste company that merged and took an equity position with Sustainable Asset Management. And as we target assets that are deemed for waste, and we find other opportunities to implement a program where is more sustainable. So it's a joint venture between two companies that found a need for this. And as you can see from our presentation, it's very vast in different items. So Nelson, we can go ahead and go to the first slide. This was in New Jersey, and it was an old distillery plant that was out for liquidation, and different items had to be disposed of. And we were approached that there was stainless steel tanks actually on the third floor, that the stainless steel value of the tanks was minimal to the cost of the removal and the value of the tanks. So they hired Premier and with Asset Sustainable Management, and we weighed the recycled value for the stainless steel up against a client. Through our network, we found a client that needed the tanks, and we put a sale value on them, and they were sold. All of the Premier Facility Management cost was included in the 111,000, compared to the recycled value, which was minimal. And in the same process, Asset Sustainable Management and Premier Facility Management, I'll just call it a joint venture going forward, located a contractor that did the removal well below the original cost that the developer had on file. And so it was a win-win on both scenarios. In the beginning, we lined up all the tanks outside. The condition of the tanks had to be pre-approved by the buyer, which they were. The buyer agreed to purge the tanks and clean the tanks at his cost, and all of the related items were put into a container, which was taken to a local scrap yard, and all of the parts and the related, like I said, related items to the tanks were recycled. So the entire project was done, recycled, and as a beneficial use, if you want to call it, or some type of resale. Because part of our programs, as you're going to see in these slides, is if you want to achieve sustainability, that could be recorded. And you need to have the environmental issue connected to the economic issue. That's what takes the sustainability to the next level. And that is what we target in these programs. You go to the next one, Nelson. Okay, this was a recent project that we did for another national client. Premier Facility Management and Asset Sustainable Management does all of the waste management for this client. This client had 30 storage bags. This is a storage company. And Nelson, if you can show the next slide, they're the bags. And basically you would store it, whatever you're storing in these bags, but the bags were made with two different types of plastic, and which we tried, but there was no value in the recycling of the plastics. So therefore, we go to the next step as any type of beneficial use. And we struck out with that because not only were the bags made of two plastics, you had corrugated involved, you had the film plastic that they were placed in. So it really didn't make economic sense. So we went to the next step where we donated it to the food bank. The local food bank got food pallets, and Feed the Needy in Georgia got the rest. So we avoided landfill, we avoided costs for landfill, we avoided that it could not be recyclable. So it falls into that category of beneficial use or some type of reuse program. And the first thing that we target in reuse is charity. And this way the charity benefited, and the environment benefited, and the client benefited because all he paid was for the trucking. So it's a win-win-win, keeping this type of mentality. The next one was a little crazy, but I'll get to this one. During the pandemic, there was all kinds of hand sanitizers that was available. We got contracted by a client, and this basically are all assets that are on their books. That's why it's very, very crucial to have these type of answers ready to go, because when an asset is on a company's books, they want it off immediately. And they don't have time to, get into all kinds of different phases in getting disposal for those products. So these were 4-ounce sanitized bottles that, for some reason, the corporation, which is in California, and the material was located in Indiana, I believe, had to be discarded. They did not want them on the retail market. So the fact that it was 8 trailers and it's 26 pallets per trailer, and to go out for distillation or any type of recycling program that we currently do with products like this, where they separate the ethanol and they destroy the product by recouping the ethanol. Because of the bottle was so small, the 3 ounces, it was very, very, very costly. Over $10,000 a trailer, and the client did not want to go for that money, obviously, and they asked us if we can find another use or another program that they could save on this $89,000. So what we did was we contacted one of many charities that we deal with, tremendous amount of charity we have on our national network, the reentry program, Jada Fulmore, which is wonderful. And I ran it by Jada, and I said, Jada, this is a big underdoing. This is a big project. I mean, do you have charities that we could, connect to this this product? The client agreed to pay for the trucking, which was, the charity is not going to pay for the trucking, and which we did. And we had a logistic company that delivered it all to New Jersey at their facility, and they delivered in LTLs to certain facilities you'll see on this list, organizations that was distributed from there. So you got to understand, there's 8 tractor trailers can't deliver to a charity. It's impossible. 1 tractor trailer can't deliver to a charity. But we maneuvered the transportation where all these charities listed received the hand sanitizer. And this was right when the pandemic ended. So it was a tremendous gift, so to speak, to the organizations. And it would not have happened without the New Jersey entry program helping us to make this happen. And obviously, this is a big, big, big part of achieving the sustainability and even avoiding recycling, the cost in recycling. If you have a point where it's just too costly, the economics has to fuse somehow with the environmental issues that are in hand and come up with a program that would work. And this one worked very well. And I commend the reentry. I commend Jada, because without them, this could not have happened. The next slide is other items that we do in that same kind of category. Every distribution facility nationally, and we do projects nationally, as you're going to see further on into this presentation, they get toys delivered mainly from China or wherever, and they're damaged. Now the actual toy isn't damaged. The packaging is damaged. In the shipping, it happens. And the actual toy in the box is not recyclable. I mean, it's all different types of plastics. We tried with Walmart. We tried with the old Toys R Us. It's just almost impossible. The cost to do that separation and that packaging and baling it and sending it to recycle, it just doesn't work. And a lot of to go back to the previous gentleman, a lot of the packaging and the actual product are made from 2 different types of plastics. It makes it totally impossible to recycle. So again, it falls into the beneficial use category and charities. So we store these at different facilities throughout the year. We store them at the facility and come Christmas time, next one, Nels. There you go. We distributed Camden, Trenton, Patterson, Newark, Orange. We've been doing this for a lot of years. And Christmas time, they have their different programs, have their parties. And we make sure that these kids have the toys. You can see there that some organizations don't have even room to have the toys distributed. So they have a truck in their parking lot, and that's where these kids get the toys. Some organizations have parties, and it just enhances the fact that there is an answer with all assets, whether they're damaged or whether they're obsolete or whether you needed some type of benefit to reduce landfill, reduce carbon footprint, reduce enhance the sustainability. That's what we target. That's all front end done prior to us even thinking of disposal. We don't, my staff doesn't even discuss disposal. All this gets done in the front. And every Christmas we make a lot of kids happy with something that would normally be thrown out. Okay, the next one was a interesting project. In California, we had a client that had aluminum cans, and they were obsolete in some way. We get a call that we have 1953 foot trailers that need to be discarded. And normally the client already has the cost in hand. As the stainless steel tanks you saw in the first slide, they already have their budget. We get called in the 11th hour. And if you see there's an arrow pointing in between the cans, that was a membrane that is placed there to protect the can. Now they wanted that membrane back, which was a tax to do. They had a cost of companies out in California, and they gave us what their cost is if we can do better. We found a company that would separate and store and palletize the membrane, send it back to the client, and recycle the aluminum can, which brought a value, as you can see on the screen, of $49,000. Now the next one. And as you can see, we found a company that had this machine called a Brickman, okay? And it took a whole pallet of cans, and that's what the end result of a whole pallet of those cans look like. It's a high density baler that is just made to make these briquettes, and it worked for the aluminum cans, and the client was ecstatic. And the Brickman machine is made in Sweden, and it also can do liquid. There's a whole system that can do liquid. So we got pretty lucky in California because the Brickman machine is made by Orwac. Premier Facility Management is a distributor of Orwac. And again, we connect the dots and we make the sustainability work. It's all about connecting the dots. This is another interesting program. Again, in California, the word spreads. This was plastic bottles, shampoo bottles that were made in Vietnam. They came to this country off spec. The client refused them. There was 28 trailers. And when we received the project, we looked at it, and if you see there's a red circle around a small slug there, we could understand the cost. With these bottles, you understand the cap comes in a box, the bottle comes in a box, and this item comes in a box. So there's a lot of labor. We understand that. And PET plastic is worth X amount. The caps are worth basically nothing. But we couldn't understand what that slug was. So we got a sample. That slug was a preform. Now, I didn't even know what a preform was at that point. And we found out that the preforms, because that's the slug that goes in the extruder that makes the bottle, is very valuable. As you can see, as you follow the whole time, the items here, the rebate was $96,000 from something that was going to cost them money to separate. So it's digging into the items and seeing what we can do, and all of that front end. That's what the end results is. Next, Nels. Okay, and as you can see, that's the Brickman machine again with the corrugated baled and the slugs made out of the plastic. Next. Okay, this is a project actually we're in the middle of doing right now. We're halfway done. And again, in California, this was a company that saves and redistributes old airplane parts. They're moving to Arizona, and they had 2 facilities in Arizona that they wanted to clean out. We were doing the program as we were source separating at the site in different containers. There's wood crates, there's metal, there's plastics. As you can see, all the items that were in these crates. And you can see the bottom right, we were doing the source separation there. And what happened was the private equity firm that was owned the business now had a timeline that they wanted to be out at a certain time of both buildings. So the source separation, which took a lot of labor, a lot of time, we talked about putting in an auger and different types of shredders and to process it there, and that didn't work. So we found local material processing facilities, and keeping in mind that California is franchised, so we were limited to our companies that we can deal with. We had to maintain within the franchise district, and we're currently doing that right now. And I think we're 50% done with the second building, but the story doesn't end there. So
Bob, real quick interruption. Sorry, just a couple more minutes. Okay.
Okay. Go on to the next one. Okay, this was a small job that we did in South Carolina. Again, motors. We connected the motors with the parts, as you can see. So the motors were more valuable when you connect the parts to it, and $1,200 value went to $9,600. The next one was in Georgia. We had a client that had 800 acres, solar panel retrofit project that they got a cost of $750,000 to remove and dispose of all these solar panels that were left behind. We located two certified labs to test the solar panels, finding out that they were not of any type of hazardous material in them. So right away we jumped into the recycling end and disposal end, and we found 2 facilities that would take them. They got certified labs to certify that they were okay. And just by doing our homework and connecting the dots, you can see the savings in that project was tremendous. Next slide, Nels. And there's how the property looked when we were done. And that's it. That's our story.
I can see that we have a bunch of questions, so probably only going to have time for 2 now, and we'll save the rest of the questions for the end. Gina, do you want to pick out a couple?
Of course, yeah. So first up, in regard to the hand sanitizer that you were discussing, the question is curious why the material was not marketable, but it was acceptable to charities.
It was something internally with the corporation. They did something internally with another corporation, and there was a legal issue involved. And that's all we were told, that there was a internal legal issue involved with the name Watkins, and that's when they gave us the project.
Okay, awesome. Is there time for any more, Steve? Okay, I'll continue. The next question is, what is LTL?
It's just it's a smaller truckload.
Less than truckload.
Right,
Okay,
now,
less than truckload. Got it.
right.
Okay, we'll move on to the next question. It says, how do you select charities, and do you have a process for charities to register with you? Is there a way to then educate, track, and receive those donations to encourage sustainable donation?
Well, that's a good question. We have a whole network, a whole database of charities. I've been doing this since the early 90s. So we have charities from New York to California to Los Angeles. Just to couple with the reentry is we've been donating toys to the ISP program, Intensive Supervision Program in Newark for years now. They introduced me to the reentry and the reentry. So it's just word of mouth. When I was at a reentry meeting, I met with a woman from the food bank, and she said I needed bags, and there you go. As soon as we get a call, we have bags that went to the food bank. So it's just networking.
Yeah, it's important to note that we are always looking for additional charities. Anyone we can help, we're certainly willing to take them on. So please contact us.
Okay, awesome. And then we have one
Gina,
last question. Okay.
Gina, why don't we save that one for the Q&A period so we don't fall too far behind? Bob and Nelson, thank you very much. That was a very interesting presentation. And you guys are certainly handling a lot of unusual items and keeping a lot of materials out of landfill. So great job. So you guys could turn off your cameras now. We'll move on to our next topic, which is taking a different turn here. We're going into the world of food waste, which, as we all know, is a hot topic. And here to discuss the business case for reducing, rescuing, and recycling wasted food is Victoria Phillips, a waste reduction consultant for the Center for Eco-Technology. So I will turn it over to Victoria.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Steve. Share my slides. Are they showing on your side, Steve?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay.
All good. All good.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, it's not loading my side. Oh, there we go. Perfect. Wonderful. Well, thank you all for inviting me to speak this morning. I'm Victoria Phillips, as Steve said, a waste reduction consultant for the Center for Eco-Technology. So, our organization, the Center for Eco-Technology, is a nonprofit that helps people and businesses save energy and reduce waste. For over 40 years, we've helped businesses and institutions implement programs on the ground while contributing to and implementing effective public policy on these different efforts. Our partnerships are critical to making this impact happen. So listed here are some of the government agencies, utilities, and foundations we partner with to make this environmental change happen. As a nonprofit, we also do seek funding through grants, fee-for-services, contracts, and donations. So we are thankful to be working in states like New Jersey with such incredible enthusiasm for reducing, reusing, and rescuing diverted food waste. For instance, it's been a pleasure to contribute to the New Jersey Climate Change Alliance. Sorry, tried to use the Teams. Okay, apologies for that. So, for instance, it's been a pleasure to contribute to the New Jersey Climate Change Alliance Organics Working Group that recently finalized a comprehensive report, including the critical strategies and opportunities for reducing wasted food in the state. The Natural Resource Defense Council is also working in the city of Jersey City to further policies and programs that will foster diversion programs as well. These efforts are more relevant than ever in light of New Jersey's food waste law, which was enacted in 2021. CET's work spans coast to coast. with a concentrated impact in the Northeast and throughout the East Coast. Since 2013, the Center for Ecotechnology has launched our Wasted Food Solutions program. And we've been able to help recover more meals, divert more food from disposal, ultimately benefiting our communities, the environment, and our bottom lines. So while CET is not a solution provider, meaning that we do not are not a food rescue organization, composter, et cetera, we are there to provide tailored recommendations and connect a diverse range of entities with surplus solutions and needs to service providers that can reduce, rescue, and recycle it. So pivoting towards the impact, spanning over a decade, CET's Wasted Food Solution Program has created a positive impact. Since 2013, this work has recovered over 21 million meals that could be donated, diverted more than 150,000 tons of food waste, and avoided nearly 70,000 tons of CO2 emissions conservatively. And so CET continues to innovate, implement, and scale environmental solutions that help communities thrive and achieve broader sustainability goals. So the EPA food recovery hierarchy guides CET's approach to wasted food solutions. Depending on the business, one or a suite of these wasted food recovery solutions can help advance their sustainability goals. Looking at source reduction, which looks to reduce the volume of surplus food generated, depending on the industry. But in the case, for example, of a restaurant, we looked for adjusting things like portion sizes, inventory management, and repurposing surplus ingredients through strategic menu planning. Moving on to feeding hungry people, which looks to rescue surpluses. Businesses or institutions can be connected with local food rescue organizations and food banks to establish partnerships that assist with logistics and pick up any of the donatable food. Feeding animals is next up, which any discarded organics that can't go to hungry people or just be reduced in the first place, and that are best suited for animal feed. CET can help facilitate introductions to local farms that accept material. Moving on to industrial uses, you can think of these as like biofuels from cooking oil or biogas from anaerobic digestion, which is often abbreviated as AD, and is essentially the breakdown of organic material like food waste without oxygen. So similar to animal feed and composting, depending on the needs and proximity of the business, it's also a potential outlet. And lastly, we have composting. Creating healthy soils requires incorporating nutrient-rich organic matter into it, and wasted food is just that. So while some of us may seem like new, it's a new and trendy topic. Composting has been around for millennia, very long time. Farmers have been making their own compost as fertilizers, reducing external input needs and costs, while also boosting soil and crop health, and also in turn our health. So CET can assist businesses with everything from implementing source reduction in the kitchen and reviewing quotes from organic haulers to helping with on-site system selection and design. Just briefly touching, here's a snapshot of New Jersey's food waste law, which extends to businesses or institutions that are generating at least 52 tons of organic waste per year, and also applying to if there's a processor within 25 miles of the generator. More details on the food waste law can be found on our CET's Wasted Food Solutions page for New Jersey. And while the New Jersey food law provides one motivator for implementing a food program to reduce, recover, recycle food waste, compliance can just be one of the many potential benefits, which brings me to our no-cost waste assistance and meeting potential businesses where they are. So in eligible states, we offer opportunities for no-cost waste assistance, a vital piece to our services. We can meet in person or virtually to explore food waste recovery opportunities by conducting walkthrough assessments and evaluating existing waste streams. Following the waste assessment, CET waste reduction consultants like myself can help develop customized recommendation reports, which include a reflection of what we saw when we met, as well as observations to prevent, recover, or otherwise divert material from the trash. So this is a roadmap to implementing a program that are going to align best for your facility, and they can extend to customized waste bin signage or conducting cost analysis, or like I previously mentioned, connecting you with potential haulers. All of this includes a tailored list of solution providers, best practices for rolling out the program, and training resources that encourage long-lasting, successful program adoption. So moving into some of the success stories of how this technical assistance has shown up in a lot of our work. First up, we have the University of New Haven. So the University of New Haven works with Haven Harvest, who works to build relationships and provide transportation for surplus food created at businesses and community partners that distribute it. The University of New Haven has been composting and donating surplus food since 2019. In 2022, CET had the opportunity to partner with the University of New Haven to improve the front and back of house recycling and food scrap collection. So through this partnership, the university was able to reduce the weight of their dumpsters, which reduced their overall disposal cost. And this reduction equated to a savings of about $615 each semester. Atlantic Capes Fishery is a Rhode Island case study. And so in 2019, CET partnered with Atlantic Capes Fishery, a fully integrated seafood company in Rhode Island, to support their sustainability goals for responsibly handling a renewable resource. The business currently diverts inedible or undesirable parts of fish to an anaerobic digester to create energy and fertilizer. In 2021 alone, the compost plant, local Rhode Island service provider, hauled 720 tons of this material from the for organics recycling from Atlantic Capes Fishery. While this opportunity has contributed to the operation's sustainability goals, the business continues to seek new strategies to divert an even larger portion of its waste stream, clamshells, as you can see in the picture. So due to the significant volume of material generated, the business and many other businesses across New England are faced with the challenge of handling clamshells. Following a site visit in 2019, CET identified potential outlets for this material, including dog food, fertilizer, replacement for limestone and cement, reef and oyster bed rejuvenation, and experimental uses such as inclusion in cosmetics. Despite extensive research, the team is still working to identify potential outlets for the sizable portion of material generated. Still, several challenges in repurposing this material have been identified are not unique to Atlantic Cape Fishery. This volume of clamshells to be handled fluctuates with the demand of seafood. And while they have worked with local compost facilities to process material, the shells are incredibly sharp. So after staff received feedback from barefoot local gardeners using their finished product who did not want to buy compost with the sharp shells, they stopped accepting this item. So another challenge is that the shells need to be pre-processed to remove clam residue. And while they have already been crushed, there's not enough space for additional step of curing them, which takes about 90 days. So lots of challenges involved with this one. And in 2021, CET and Atlantic Cape Fisheries identified an area landscaper who could take a load of shells to use for driveway amendment. As a fishery produces significantly more volume than landscaper needs, this is an ongoing opportunity, but a good example of how CET can provide extensive research to try and find creative solutions to different food waste needs. Moving into our work with in partnership with Rutgers University, CET is helping bring a localized food waste diversion solution to the New Jersey elementary schools. So MLK is elementary school located in Paterson, New Jersey, and was recently outfitted with an eco-rich in-vessel dehydration system, as you can see on the left. The cafeteria and janitorial staff were trained in conjunction with eco-rich on how to use the system, which transforms breakfast and lunch food that's been wasted into a soil amendment. And this partnership also extends to the city of Paterson, who collects the soil amendment every so often and incorporates it into its city landscaping. So CET's technical assistance here is helping staff and students implement food waste diversion techniques in the kitchen and cafeteria, and thinking of creative solutions and fun solutions, especially for young kids. And this moving into a collaboration with the municipality or city directly. In 2021, we launched a food waste business challenge with the city of Philadelphia and with support from the USDA. This is an exciting opportunity to offer technical assistance to businesses which have applied to the challenge and help each business adopt their own applicable strategies. The challenge offers a marketing opportunity and an exciting measurable impact. So here we work to identify challenges and best practices for Philly businesses pursuing zero waste. We look to model the circularity within the Philly food economy and also gather feedback that will help the various stakeholders, including the Food Policy Advisory Council, formulate policy recommendations. So implementing food recovery programs also means coordinating with multiple stakeholders frequently. So in particular, when a business is housed within a mixed use property or share space with multiple businesses, it can propose additional challenges. An important first step is clarifying how the existing waste management program operates and identify who owns and manages the contracts. Often a landlord or a property manager, understanding the stakeholder landscape clarifies who needs to be involved in deciding a new food recovery program's contracting and dividing costs among participating businesses. So oftentimes it will be like a single business who's interested in participating, and it's often on the onus of them to kind of at least start the conversations. So several contracting configurations that CET has worked with and helped coordinate. So group contracts, this is like with or without a centralized collection space. A group of restaurants that are in the same or nearby buildings can collectively contract for organics collection or complete waste management services. Or you could select a single entity, usually a co-op, creating a cooperative, or it's a landlord or a lead restaurant can contract with one hauler to provide the services to all participants in the group. And the group may or may not share a dumpster, compactor, or tote storage sheds. But this is looking mostly at the contracts. And so,
Victoria, just give you a heads up. You have about 5 minutes left, and I see you have a number of slides, so you may want to push it forward a little bit.
Yep, I think I have like 2 or 3 left. So an example of multiple business collectively implementing a food recovery program is Findlay Market, located in Cincinnati, Ohio. Findlay collaborated with CET to increase participation in their food recovery programs. Findlay has a localized diversion system that reduces and recovers surplus food throughout partnerships with food rescue organizations and a composting operation. So their food scraps are collected from vendors and customers that feed an on-site composting system. So rather than contracting with an off-site, so they have several earth tubes that break down the food waste collected into a finished compost that they use for landscaping on their grounds. They also partner with some local partners on food waste donation options. Lastly, to wrap up, beyond providing direct no-cost assistance, CET supports policy development and highlighting business successes. So here, CET also helps create platforms and outlets for businesses and institutions already making achievements in food recovery and sustainability. In 2022, CET featured plant-based and a New Jersey nonprofit cafe and zero waste grocery store in our New Jersey spotlight. So plant-based from day one made reducing waste, donating edible surplus, and recycling food scraps as a critical part of their mission. And so being able to highlight businesses like plant-based not only helps elevate local business achievements, it also creates a resource of success stories and potential roadmaps for businesses aspiring to implement food solutions. Finally, a quick note on our Stockton University work. So in partnership with Stockton University and support from NJDEP, CET conducted a data quality assessment through sector interviews. So you can see that the process outlined in the little yellow boxes, looking at different sectors and sampling different geographic areas. And these results were used to compare with the current waste estimate database and help further data quality in the food waste estimate space. So you can find more information on everything I just chatted about on our Wasted Food Solutions website that offers specific resources, case studies, guidance documents, and recorded websites. You can also find CET's general contact information, or you can feel free to reach out to me directly via the contact information you see on the screen. Yeah. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Victoria. I wasn't trying to rush you. On my screen, it looked like you had about 10 more slides to go. So I was like, uh-oh.
We always like some backup slides just in case.
Okay.
Yeah.
What I'd like to do is, since we are a little behind schedule, to save any of the questions for you for the general Q&A period at the end. So I want to move on to our next speaker, if you don't mind. So
Yeah, no problem.
please stick around. But thank you very much. You guys are doing great work, and it's really encouraging to see. Okay. So we will now move into our final presentation, which I like to call a case study. It's waste reduction and recycling strategies at Firmenich, Inc. And joining us today is Claire Lumkong, the Director of Sustainability at Firmenich. And Claire is an experienced sustainability expert in New Jersey, and I'm going to turn it over to her.
Thank you, Steve. Yeah, let me introduce myself, Claire Lumkong. I am the Director of Sustainability with Firmenich in the GWS organization. And can you see my slides? Because I've lost visibility to you.
Yes,
okay,
they were good.
Thank you. And I have been with WasteWise for many, many years. I was formerly with Bristol Myers Squibb, participated in the WasteWise program there, and many moons ago was with Lockheed Martin and participated in the WasteWise program at that time as well. Now, I've been with Firmenich for about a year and a half, so some of the success stories that I'm going to share with you precede me, and I'd like to actually first, doesn't seem to go along. There we are. Let me introduce Firmenich to you, because it may be one of the largest companies that perhaps you have never heard of. So Firmenich is a family-owned business. We just celebrated our 125-year anniversary, and it's a flavors and fragrances company. So what does that mean? We are in 3 different spaces: perfumery, ingredients, and taste and beyond. And you know a lot of our products. So in perfumery, there are 2 areas: fine fragrances and consumer fragrances. The fine fragrances, are oldest and probably most iconic fragrance is Chanel No. 5. So I think we all know that one. In the consumer fragrances, that's in a lot of spaces, such as laundry detergent, candles, everything that has an aroma requires the ingredients of fragrance. In our ingredients business area, we're working towards a lot of natural flavors and fragrances. So that's the focus in that particular group. And then in taste and beyond, we operate in beverages, sweet goods, and savory. So it was Matthew, I think, who was speaking about yogurt, which of course has a flavor tied to it. So we might provide that flavor for yogurt, or flavored coffees, flavored vodkas. In the sweet goods, if you see a new flavor of Oreo cookie coming out, that might be something that we were working on. And in savory, think of ranch dressing and flavors such as that. So 125-year-old company. We just recently celebrated that. We're a family-owned business that on Monday will become a public company, because on Monday we're actually merging with another company called DSM, and we will become an even larger company that perhaps you may have never heard of. But as I say, it was a family-owned business up until the weekend, right? This coming weekend. And one of the goals of the Firmenich family was to be best in class in ESG. And this is quite a significant brag sheet that we have up on the screen. So I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but I do want to share that quite proud of being one of 2 companies worldwide to be AAA for 5 consecutive years in the CDP. So we recently got that news, very proud of that. We are 100% renewable worldwide for renewable electricity worldwide for all of our operations. We have established science-based targets. We are part of the UN Global Compact. Just really phenomenal work that has gone on within the company over the years. So as you know, and as every speaker has said up to now, is that all of those accolades are achieved. It's a team effort. It's a group effort. There's a lot of stakeholders involved. And this is my version of a meme. Right? It's not really a meme. But anyway, you know, it starts off with those corporate goals, with the vision. Certainly, the next slide I can share with you those goals, but it also involves the governance, the policies, the metrics, and then there's the team that's involved. It starts off with the leadership support, and then every organization needs to be involved. We're talking about waste in this meeting, and so we need a cross-functional waste-focused team. We need to engage with procurement. We need to engage with our waste vendors or our third parties. And of course, our employees, which are absolutely critical. And the thing with waste is that once you sort out one waste stream, one solution, then you need to always either drive your decisions further up that waste hierarchy or focus on the next challenge. So it's never finished, right? We're never finished in this space. And as we learn more, we do better. So these are our main 2025 corporate targets. And there are 3 main sections: acting on climate change, embracing nature, and caring about people. And for the purpose of this discussion, we're looking at that section, acting on climate change. We have 2 main high-level goals, which are 100% plastic packaging, fully recyclable or reusable, and 0 waste to landfill. So we do have some success stories that I'd like to share very briefly, because if you require additional insight into any of these case studies, I will certainly put you in touch with the right person. But in our manufacturing area, we use a lot of ethanol, for example. And this is our Plainsboro, New Jersey. It's our US headquarters. And we've reduced our hazardous waste by sending out ethanol as a gasoline additive at refineries. So that goes out for reclamation. And this has been going on for approximately 10 years. And on average, every year we send 20 to 30,000 gallons for reclaim every year. So significant waste reduction. And this came about, of course, between our EHS department and also a collaboration with our waste hauler, who has been a tremendous asset, hazardous waste hauler. We happen to use Veolia in this case, and always coming up with great solutions for waste alternatives. So the second big impact project that I'd like to share is within our ingredients facility, which is located in Newark, New Jersey. And in 2019, we reduced our organic waste by approximately 24%, which is roughly 225,000 gallons of waste per year. And this again was a collaboration with our waste hauler, where we were taking a look at our largest volume waste streams, and those are from two products that we create, hedione and habanilide processes. And in this particular case, we were sending it off as a fuel. And we're able to, as I say, reduce the waste by 24%, and then looking to increase that reclamation to 40% of the site's waste. So those are some big impact projects. Again, if you would like any more information about those two, please reach out to me and I will certainly put you in touch with the right people. We also have the goal of a zero waste to landfill for all of our manufacturing and non-manufacturing sites that have a population greater than 50 at all of those locations by 2025. We do have a number of very small locations around the globe. So these are all global goals. And so where we're able to, we reach out to those locations, but that's a landlord-tenant agreement usually. And so what we aim to do is have those dialogues in our green lease program. I'll speak more about that in a moment. But we do recycle a lot of our standard waste streams right now, that none of these would be a big surprise to the audience. But what we have been able to do for North America is that we are able to divert 95% of our waste streams away from landfill. So really a great, great program, but always more to be done. So I will show you how we're tackling our additional waste streams in a moment. And I want to thank Kai for his introduction and congratulate Steve for this lineup, because I feel as though you were setting the stage for me to talk about the programs at Firmenich. I'm part of the GWS organization. As of today, it's called GWS, Global Workplace Solutions. As of Tuesday, it will be called, and I just got this news, the Group Real Estate and Workplace. But essentially, what we do is support all of the infrastructure and soft services, real estate, business travel, all of the support functions for Firmenich. And so we have created a GWS Green Guide where we translate all of our GWS sustainability goals, the Firmenich ESG 2030 ambitions, and created a toolkit of strategies and checklists to support those goals. And right now I'm going to share with you some excerpts of that Green Guide, which I hope is quite useful, but with the focus of reduce waste, waste reduction, reuse, recycling. So these are our focus topics, and forgive my animations here, but we have all of these topics that we're focusing on. These are just some of the sort of chapters, if you will, within our Green Guide. And you can see that we're spanning all of the areas of responsibility under GWS. And this booklet phase of our toolkit is more inspirational, gives some high-level ideas about what we can do to implement change. And then you'll see the circle here is the link, the hot link to the associated checklist for that chapter. And you can see the index there. So I pulled out all of the areas where we talk about waste. So Obviously, we've got our, this is just another version of the waste hierarchy. So always trying to drive our waste decisions up that EPA waste hierarchy. And then also providing a little bit more in-depth ideas on, how to recycle, how to eliminate single-use plastics, a little overview of what the program is and what our approach is. And some of the other areas that are a little bit more perhaps unique are in our office supplies. So encouraging, we're a global company, so we have to keep it relevant globally. But we always buy certified paper and encouraging the purchase of recyclable, refillable supplies, for example, ordering strategically. And then there are two areas that get more into the construction and debris side. So Bob's presentation is directly relevant to this section as well. When we have we call them capital projects, but any of those capital projects usually require construction and demolition. So in this particular section, we are looking at reusing construction debris in the next project. We're looking at harvesting energy and water from other processes. And we're also looking at how we can recycle our construction debris. And behind each of these pages, there's a checklist so that the project manager can go in. I think it's very much in line with Kai's plan for sustainability. So Kai, I invite you to chat with me about lessons learned from implementing this Green Book. And lastly, on this particular page is our office and lab furniture. So in this particular space, what we're trying to do is find lab equipment, lab furniture, office furniture that is no longer being used within Firmenich, and incorporating that into our projects, but also looking at used furniture that is local to the region where we are doing the construction project. A lot of lessons learned in that particular space because we recently had such an operation, and anybody interested, I'm happy to talk with you about that. So this is our version of the plan for sustainability, and we implemented this project in February of last year. So we have a whole year of performance, and we're currently going through a refresh to implement all of the lessons learned from implementing this past year. So this is an example of the checklist. And again, tied to waste. The sections in red right now are the static sections, and you can see that we have a lot of different categories and subcategories. What I wanted to share with you is that we've ranked in priority the implementation, like how important is it to Firmenich that we have so we'll take the first one, a composting program, and then a description of what the composting is. We actually have another book, some more governance documents that give additional details as to what the description is. And so we're saying here, this is a drop-down menu. Yes, it's applicable to us. Is it implemented? I say this is a draft. I see that Virginia Lamb is on the phone, and we're planning on collaborating with Virginia Lamb to do a better job of our composting. So this is just a dummy example, but we can say whether it's partially implemented or not implemented, and then comments about that. What this leads us to at the end is to identify best practices that we can share around Firmenich, but also if we have a high priority line item that is applicable but is not implemented at the site, then you can imagine that it creates an action item list and sustainability plan for each of our sites. So the expectation is that, and this is one of many sheets, you can see all of the tabs across the bottom here, energy uses, waste reduction, green cleaning, office supplies, canteens, landscaping, pest control, on-site community gardens. That is just one of the groupings that we have. We also have a similar format for green leases. We have a similar format for construction capital projects.
Just wanted to give you a 2-minute heads up, okay?
Very good. I have 2 more slides. So this, I want to bring this forward to you today because I do believe that employee engagement has a multiplier effect, and I think that everybody on the phone appreciates that. But we recently, we have like 5 employee engagement events that we do every year. One of them is the United Nations Global Recycling Day. We align wherever we can with United Nations. That's on March 18th. And we collaborated with our e-waste hauler, New Tech Recycling, I don't know if they're on the phone, to hold a household e-waste collection at 2 of our New Jersey locations. The reason I want to share this with you is that the cost for hosting these events was absolutely minimal. We paid for the bins, we paid for the transportation, but the actual recycling was sponsored by the state of New Jersey. So really very successful, well received. And the only thing that I would say to you is that it seems like 2 weeks collection is the sweet spot, especially in this hybrid working environment that we have. Communication is absolutely key. And to go back to that comment about, you know, importance of leadership, that email from the site leadership makes all the difference to inspire people to participate. So last slide, I just want to say that this is always, it's the continuous improvement mindset. We're never done. We're certainly looking right now on lab waste, particularly lab consumables, single-use plastics, trying to eliminate those in our laboratories. And Matthew, credibility is key, right? Absolutely key. We're also looking at our product packaging. And we're a business to business. We sell to, we're not selling to the consumer. So our product packaging is going to become part of our clients and our customers' waste streams. So we're looking for credible solutions for either reuse of our product packaging or using recycled content that is also recyclable. And again, credibility, ensuring that there's a waste treatment option for not only Firmenich, but for the Firmenich customers as well. We're also continuing to look at composting, and that will be a focus in the next quarter, particularly in Plainsboro. And a refocus post-COVID on single-use plastic elimination in all of our canteens. So we were doing beautifully in that space, had to go back to single-use because of COVID, rightly so. And now we're finding that our sites are able to return to that single-use plastic elimination. And of course, none of our successes are without collaboration with our waste haulers, looking for good, credible solutions and alternative ways to look at our waste, really trying to rebrand our waste streams as raw materials, and collaboration with our suppliers, and then collaboration with our community, because this is something that we've been doing at Firmenich, is for those small, difficult to recycle waste streams, is also to see who in our local community is also struggling, and maybe combined have a waste stream that is more interesting to waste treatment options. So that's it. This is my information. I know that Steve's going to make the slides available. Please reach out with any questions.
Claire, thank you very much. You guys are doing some incredible work. And I had this great idea that we just take your green plan, cross off Firmenich and put DEP on the top of it, and boom, we're done. So you did all the work for us. So great.
Yeah.
Robin, if you could put the contact slide up, and I'd like all the speakers to put their cameras back on. And Gina, why don't we do 10? I have 11 minutes to noon. So why don't we do 11 minutes of questions, get everyone out for lunchtime, and I think it's great presentations by everybody. So thank you. Let's open up to the Q&A now. Gina?
Okay, awesome. I'm going to start with a question for Claire, just because, you know, she was just up, and then I'll go back so that we can ask the questions that weren't able to be asked for the speakers that didn't get their chance for their own Q&A. So Claire, this one's for you. It says biodiversity is a relative newcomer to the sustainable business field, as it doesn't necessarily easily translate into cost savings. How does your company look at it?
Well, you've given me the stage for that one. We actually have within the corporate organization a biodiversity officer, and we are focusing right now, and this goes back to the commitment that the Firmenich family made to have a really credible organization, a really sustainable organization. So we currently are working with 16 pilot sites who are in water scarce or sensitive areas. And we have a program that is supported by biodiversity professionals looking at how can we improve the space that we're on. One of our sites in South Africa has just won a lot of awards because they're taking the site, and instead of growing, you know, a beautiful green grass, they're creating a grassland and species that are native to that region in South Africa. So we're really trying to make a positive impact. In Plainsboro, we have apiaries on site, and we have a garden. We have a community garden for all of our employees. We have a meadow that we're letting the grass grow, and we just planted in time for day one, which is Monday after the merger, just planted a pollinator garden right in front of the main lobby, a native pollinator garden. So it's simply a commitment that the company made long before I joined.
Right, awesome. Thanks, Claire. Now we're going to jump back up to Kai. These next ones are for you. We have a question that says, is this initiative linked to New Jersey's Office of the Green Economy? And if not, why not?
No, it's not linked to that. There's no particular reason why it's not. And you know, it can, if there's a synergy that should be made there, we'll be happy to look into it. We do have several different partners that we work with when we do things in the world of sustainability. There are internal ones and external ones, including places like the PSC&G Sustainability Studies Institute, or work that we do with the New Jersey Small Business Development Centers. You know, we try to keep a focus on small businesses and intermediate-sized businesses. So when we do work like this, we try to go to the people that may know those types of industries better. But that doesn't mean that we limit ourselves to anything. So if this is a good avenue for us to work with, and there's a good relationship that we can build there, and if there's somebody that can make a contact for us, we're open to it. So there's no reason not to research other entities that want to partner up. You know, there's also federal, we deal with like EPA on different things. and incorporate some of their work, especially when it comes to energy, water, and waste programs. So no, the partnerships are great, and we have no objection to it working with others. So that'll be, if there's a synergy there, we'll be happy to look into it.
Okay, and then another question for you, Kai, is how does this look for businesses already participating in the business registry?
Right. Well, the registry is not the end goal. Okay. The registry is just part of the recognition that you can get when you do something that is measurable and sustainable. Right. So that recognition is great. Telling other people about your achievements is really good, so that you can share in that experience and share the wisdom that you may have in a particular activities that you've done for making improvements in the environment or improvements in process. So, but like I said, it's not the end goal. The end goal really is to make sure that the business is creating a environment where they are considering things that aren't just the widgets that they produce, but maybe they're also considering, of course, the environment, the community that they serve, and the overall economy that they are in. So when all those three things come together, that's what we want to have happen. And that's what we call sustainability. So this plan is just to get people to really think about it. Now, some of those businesses that are already on the registry have already thought about some of these things, and they've taken action, right? And that's great. There are some places that didn't even start thinking about it yet. So we want this to be a step-off point for them. Look at the resources that are there and start doing things to help them really investigate where they are in the world of, environmentally measurable things.
I was just thinking that your presentation and then Claire's at the end were nice bookends together, since it all ties it all together. Do we have any questions for Victoria? She didn't get any
I
questions.
do,
left for
yep.
hers.
That's what I was planning on moving on to.
Okay.
So Victoria, the first question for you is, do you consult with municipalities as well?
Yes, we do. I think a good example is the Food Waste Business Challenge with the City of Philadelphia that I mentioned in the presentation. And then often sometimes it's a multiplicity through grants. So like the Rutgers project with the MLK school also involves the City of Paterson pretty heavily. Just a few examples.
And then also there was a question that says, where does CET have offices?
That's a great question. So CET is originated and based out of Western Massachusetts. So that's where our main office is. Post-COVID, we semi-transitioned to remote work. So I'm actually based in New Jersey and able to provide support in this region, but I have partners and colleagues scattered throughout the New England area and even in other parts of the US to be able to help localize the support that we provide.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. And then one last question is, who paid for the composter for the school?
Yes, always a great question and a matter of cost. So it was a grant partnership between Rutgers and some other funders, and it was a leased project to understand the feasibility study. So if whoever has this particular question wants to get into the nitty-gritty, like feel free to reach out to me and understand how that program got developed. Yeah.
All right, thanks so much, Victoria. Steve, is there time for even one more question,
Yeah.
or we're all good?
Sure, we have two more minutes.
Okay, there was another question for Claire. It says, if you align with the UN, have you thought of choosing some of their 17 sustainable development goals and aiming to do your share towards meeting them?
Well, I had a little bit of lead time in order to, I saw that question come up. There you go. This is from our ESG Ambitions guidebook, which is available. And then also in our ESG report, which should be behind it. Yeah, here's another depiction of how we align with those UN sustainable development goals. So yeah, very much a focus for the company and a focus for me, frankly, you know, in what I do. Everything I do, I try and, you know, tie it back to those UN SDGs. So thank you for the question.
Thanks, Claire.
Yeah.
Why don't we take one more question, Gina?
Okay, I'm gonna pop back up to Robert and Nelson then. There was one unanswered question. It says, were the carbon emissions from transporting the materials cross-country weighted against the emissions from throwing things away? In the case where a charity can avoid purchasing a new item, I think the transport would be weighted against landfill and creation of the new product.
Yeah, well, you got to weigh the fact that, you know, you had from Indiana to New Jersey, yeah, there were carbon issues. But from Indiana to the two processing facilities were even further than New Jersey. So we weighed that. And then, you know, soon, like I mentioned before, economics, environment equals sustainability. And, you know, when you put the pluses down where you had so many charities that saved on their budget from buying the hand sanitizer, and the fact that the facilities that the hand sanitizer is going to deem to go for disposal, even though they were further, okay, takes energy to recycle. You know, recycling doesn't happen by magic. It takes energy to process and recycle material. So that's, you know, we weigh all these items, and the fact that the client saved $80,000 in processing, they also got a $500,000 tax write-off. So the carbon issue becomes smaller as all the positives increase. And then as far as life cycle of a toy and life cycle of different items that we donate, it all comes down to, yeah, okay, eventually that toy is going to break, and eventually it's got to be, hopefully, in that municipality with all the sustainability going on, you know, it's going to be recycled. And that hand sanitizer, when that bottle is empty, hopefully they're going to put it in their commingled disposal and it's going to be recycled. You know, I mean, that's how we weigh on with byproduct, beneficial use, anything that falls into that category. You know, we weigh. And by the way, I'm glad you mentioned about the UN thing. Premier was issued two items on that UN thing that we qualified for. It's just an FYI.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Well, I want to thank all of our speakers for excellent presentations, and I'm sure our attendees got a lot of great information out of them. I know I did. I want to thank Rob and Gina and Emily in my office for helping make this so easy for me. And I'm sorry we're a little bit behind schedule, but you're right in time for lunch. So I thank you again and have a wonderful day, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Thank you.